The other day, Spencer and I were on a hike and we were talking about minerals. So, micronutrients are vitamins and minerals. And Spencer asked, what are minerals? Or what even are minerals? Are they proteins? Welcome to the Complete Nutrition Podcast.
The podcast where we break free from the dieting cycle and explore sustainable, realistic ways to improve your health.
I'm Kylie, a registered dietitian with over 10 years of experience.
And I'm Spencer, and I've been eating food my entire life. And I happen to be a nurse.
Each week, we dive into the science, psychology, and strategies behind mindful eating and sustainable change.
Whether you're here to transform your relationship with food, learn how to make lasting lifestyle changes, or are simply curious about what true health looks like, you're in the right place.
We'd invite you to subscribe and tag along if you'd like to stop dieting and start living. This episode is brought to you by the vitamin B3, otherwise known as niacin. And I am super excited to share the story of niacin. It has been over a decade since I have been to college, and I learned about this vitamin when I was in my Nutrition 101 class, and I feel like the story of niacin has been burned into my brain. I think it's super interesting and definitely deserves to be showcased. So back in the early 1900s, there's a common disease called pellagra, and it was characterized by the 4 Ds: dermatitis, so rashes or sores on your skin, diarrhea, dementia, or trouble concentrating, trouble connecting thoughts, just general confusion, and ultimately death. And it was commonly seen in orphanages and prisons. And medical professionals noted that it never affected the staff, and it was only the actual orphans or the actual inmates. And it was the general understanding that this disease, pellagra, was spread by germs. And it was a medical professional whose name was Joseph Goldberger. He was a physician. And he was convinced that it was a disease of poor nutrition and not germs. And oftentimes the diet of the poor in these orphanages and in these prisons were corn-based. And it was very common for these individuals that were on these corn-based diets to eventually develop pellagra and eventually pass. And he would order balanced meals for these patients of his, for meats and fruits and vegetables, and he would see improvements. And he tried to convince his coworkers and his colleagues, other medical professionals who did not believe him and still believed that it was a disease spread by germs. So he did the ultimate experiment on himself, and he ingested capsules of feces and scabs from his pellagra patients, as well as swabbing. He swabbed their noses and then swabbed his own nose as well.
So gross. That's so gross.
Yeah, now we all know what it feels like to have your nose swabbed after all of us who've been tested for
and
COVID.
Imagine then sticking your person that you just swabbed's nose up into your own nose.
Yeah, a little bit gross.
Super gross.
So not only that, he also injected himself with their blood, and he did not develop pellagra. And he was able to convince most of his colleagues, but still there are a few physicians that were dead set that it was still germs and not necessarily a nutritional deficiency. And it wasn't later until the 1930s that it was discovered and identified as an actual vitamin, which we now know as niacin. And why it's so important, if any, this probably doesn't mean anything for someone who hasn't had a biology class. This blew my mind. So if you remember in your biology class, there is a coenzyme or a driving factor. It drives reaction, NAD and NADPH. The N is niacin. So without niacin, all of our metabolic processes like the Krebs cycle or glycolysis cannot move forward without that driving cofactor. And so once our metabolism stops or isn't able to function, all of those other things happen, and we see that manifested in the dermatitis, the diarrhea, and dementia, then ultimately death. And niacin is found in meats, nuts, and legumes. So very important B vitamin.
Today, we're talking about micronutrients. Speaking of niacin.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what even are micronutrients? I'm honestly not sure what they are.
Well, we kind of
To
talked
be
about this
100%
in
honest.
our first episode. So we have macronutrients. Those are the nutrients that we need in large amounts. We need in grams. And then micronutrients, which I think this is very appropriate. The other day, Spencer and I were on a hike and we were talking about minerals. So micronutrients are vitamins and minerals. And Spencer asked, what are minerals? Or what even are minerals? Are they proteins? So
No.
vitamins.
That makes me sound dumb.
No, I think that's a good question.
It is, because I was like, wait, I guess they're. My first thought was that they must be rocks, because I mean, that's what minerals are. But I'm like, but wait, do we utilize rocks? And then I, forgot that it's down at the atomic level. And anyway, I was like, it just sounded weird to me that we're utilizing rocks.
I really appreciate even doing this podcast with you because I feel like it, I don't know, sometimes I think, yeah, it just is helpful to
have the layman's
the
view.
layman's point of view of what maybe I
nutrition
don't
stuff.
acknowledge. So micronutrients are vitamins and minerals, and they are just that, vitamins and minerals, and they're considered micronutrients because they're needed in very, very small amounts, in either micrograms or milligrams. And there was this question actually reminds me of, I was doing an education in a hospital for someone for a low sodium diet. And their son was arguing to me that sodium was a macro and it should be counted as a macro.
How old was the son? How old was this person?
Oh, I don't know. Probably in like his older 30s.
How much
or
sodium
40s.
Is he ingesting if he thinks it's a macronutrient?
Yeah.
Give
He probably would have been pickled. He was eating grams of sodium. Anyway, so micronutrients you need in very, very small amounts. And without them, they're essential. And what they are driving cofactors or coenzymes in different reaction. And basically what that means is that they drive the reaction. And so for example, for a niacin example, taking a glucose molecule and then creating energy from it, niacin is needed to drive that reaction and to have glucose be converted into all these different molecules and create these byproducts in order to run through and create energy. So that's what they do. They're driving factors in all of our different metabolic processes. But I'll also mention too that if we don't get enough, they can cause deficiency, but also on the flip side, getting too much could potentially cause toxicities and could also be issues as well.
Getting too much can cause toxicities?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of toxicities can you get from ingesting too much? Like, tell me more about that.
So, I mean, like off the top of my head, if you get too much calcium, I know it can calcify your organs or cause kidney stones. If you get too much, trying to think of what else. B6, I know can cause paralysis and like nervous damage. And I mean, we'd have to run through all the different vitamins and minerals.
Sure.
And some, I mean, we'll jump into this more, but some don't have toxicity levels that we're able to excrete them as we get too much.
You just get rid of it.
Yeah, but others, if we store them and if we get too much of them, then it can cause issues.
But I feel like, again, like we don't want to fearmonger. Like you would have to do some pretty extreme things.
Yeah,
for
usually
that to
through supplements, never through food. Supplement.
What are the different types of micronutrients?
So, well, we kind of talked about this. There's vitamins and minerals, and I mean, minerals, like you mentioned, are elements, right? And so, I mean, they have solid and liquid and gaseous forms. And and then vitamins, there are water soluble vitamins, so they are absorbed and excreted with water. And these vitamins are they're hard to get toxicities because we'll just pee them out. And
Mm.
then there's fat soluble vitamins
And we store those ones.
that we store.
Mm.
First, we store in our fat, so the risk for toxicity is greater, but also that we need fat in order to absorb fat soluble vitamins. And I think this is interesting because oftentimes people will tell me when I'm doing, in an assessment, I'll do a dietary recall, a 24-hour recall, and I'll ask them, well, what do you eat in a typical day? And people will say, oh, I have a salad, but I don't have the dressing, trying to sound or come off as that was a healthy choice. But really, in reality, it's healthier to eat your vegetables with a source of fat so you can absorb those fat soluble vitamins.
So use your salad dressing.
Yes.
Enjoy your ranch and know that it's
Cheers
helping
for
you
ranch.
absorb all the minerals.
Yes.
Nice. That's excellent. Okay. So fat soluble and liquid soluble. That's good to know. And they're
Water soluble.
sorry, what
I
did I
don't know
say?
about
Liquid.
liquid.
Water soluble.
Yeah.
My bad. And minerals, they're actual elements, right?
Correct. If you think about the elemental table, all of our essential minerals that we need to eat belong on that elemental table. So copper, zinc, iron,
That's kind of fun.
magnesium, phosphorus. Yeah, kind of crazy.
How do we know if we're getting enough of the minerals?
For the most part, as long as you're getting a balanced diet, you should be okay in regards to micronutrients. Oftentimes people worry and stress if they need to take supplements or a multivitamin or something. But for the most part, as long as you're eating a variety of all the food groups and you're not excluding any food group, then that should cover your bases and you should be okay.
Like we said, like it's hard to go wrong.
Right.
You'd have to
Right.
be taking a lot of supplements, like you said. We'd have to go crazy.
To eat in excess, or
To
you
eat in
have
excess.
to be malnourished or cut out a whole food group or
Yeah, so it'd be hard to do.
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you are balanced. That's like the resounding theme from these last few episodes is balance.
Yes.
Balance in our lives. Are there those who are more risk for deficiency? I mean, I know people who are malnourished, I guess, but are there like any what would make somebody at risk for deficiency?
If there are people with special energy needs, so pregnant women, children, kiddos who are growing, I guess all kids are growing, our premature babies they need more iron for brain growth. Anyone who's at risk for malnutrition, so people who are underweight or people who are going through chemotherapy, or there are people who also have malabsorption issues like Crohn's or colitis, celiac, any intestinal condition. If they've had an intestinal resection or surgery, they might have some malabsorption issues. And for those people, we do worry about their micronutrients. And those people, I would recommend supplements or even getting their levels tested to see if there is a deficiency.
And that's like the way that you would combat it the most is with supplements. I mean, obviously still eating as much food as they can, but supplementing it with supplements. I guess.
Yeah. Because sometimes their needs are so great that you need a larger amount in a supplement. Food, I definitely have people who choose not to do supplements and would rather try and eat more of those food groups. But depending on how deficient and what their conditions are, but yes, supplements, I would say if they have a deficiency, that would be my first go-to.
And it sounds like if you're worried about being one of those people, if you're pregnant or if you're worried about your kids or something, it sounds like the best method is to go get your levels tested at the doctors if you're concerned about that. And take your prenatals if you're pregnant.
Yeah, take your prenatals, have your kids take their Flintstone
Vitamins.
gummies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you take gummies growing up? Did you take vitamins growing up?
I took actual Flintstones.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I ever took vitamins growing up.
Yeah. They actually looked like the Flintstone characters and they were orange and like chalky.
Sounds gross.
Yeah. I actually really liked them and they were
Chalky.
fun. They had, what was her name? Pebbles?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It's been a while. It's been too long. So, what are the biggest micronutrients that we need to worry about, like for anybody, not just people who are pregnant or kids or whatever?
From a global perspective, the World Health Organization has identified that iron, vitamin A, and iodine are the biggest micronutrients of concern. So for iron, a lot of moms and babies are deficient in that, and it can lead to cognitive delays for the babies. They because their brain is growing so quickly and so much, they need more iron to accommodate that growth. And then vitamin A can lead to blindness. And I believe it's in India, they
A lack of vitamin A.
lack of vitamin A.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just making sure that people are
Yes.
like, oh, I took too much vitamin A.
Yes.
My eyeballs are going to fall out.
Yeah. So lack of vitamin A can lead to blindness. And some interventions they put, so beta carotene is the plant precursor to vitamin A. So we can eat beta carotene. It's in like orange colored things like oranges and citrus. And then we convert it to vitamin A and then we can utilize it. And so there is a rice that they've fortified. It's orange. It's a golden rice that they have fortified to try and increase people's vitamin A intake
In developing
globally,
countries, right?
in
Yeah.
developing nations.
Mm.
And then iodine, a lack of iodine can lead to thyroid issues. And that's where you see the big goiters on people's necks, the big, large masses, is from an iodine deficiency. And so your thyroid starts overproducing and enlarges itself because it doesn't have enough iodine, which is essential in doing in processing and producing the hormones to balance our metabolism.
I know that we get iodine from iodized salt. Is there any other significant place that we get iodine from?
Seafood.
Seafood.
Yeah.
Okay, so landlocked people are in trouble more generally.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm sure you've told me that before and that I've asked that exact question, but I forget. Also, with beta carotene, isn't beta carotene what makes food orange? So if you eat orange foods,
Yes.
you're going to be eating beta carotene.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Is the actual orange compound.
Causes the
yeah,
pigment.
beta carotene
Yeah.
makes food orange. Yeah. Kind of interesting.
That is cool.
Really cool. And then, so that's globally. In the US, the most common micronutrient deficiencies are actually the ones that they've listed on the label. So a few years ago, they changed the nutrition label. Did you ever notice? I did because I'm
Nope.
a dietitian. Okay.
I didn't know that's why they were on there.
Yeah. So they changed the label and they like made things bigger and they emphasized different points and then they changed the micronutrients. And so the ones listed now are vitamin D, potassium, calcium, and iron. And those are the most common deficiencies in the US.
Interesting. That's interesting. I did not know that's why they had those on the label because they're the ones that US
Yeah,
people need
I
to
think
pay
it's
attention
smart.
to most.
It's like really we should be paying attention to on the label is making sure we're getting enough of those in our day.
Very nice. That's a fun little tidbit. Are there certain levels that we need to look for with all these micronutrients? Like, should I be worried about getting a certain percentage? I mean, I guess on the labels it says like 13% of your vitamin D intake or whatever, but tell me about that.
I don't think you need to be overly stressed again, as long as you're eating a balance. But if you're curious about how much you need, there's something called RDAs and AIs. So RDA stands for recommended daily allowance and AI stands for adequate intake. And basically what they are, they're two values that they've taken a whole bunch of research and then they've established a value, a recommended value. RDA has more evidence or more facts supporting it, and AI has a moderate amount of evidence. And so it's more of like our best guess. And they provide actual quantities that are recommended for certain genders at different ages. And so you can Google and say, what's the RDA for a 34-year-old woman for iron? And it will pull up what the recommended levels are. And then if you're reading a label, the percent daily values are based off of what an average, so those RDAs. And so if you're looking at labels and trying to meet your RDAs, if you're looking at like a supplement, you're trying to get as close to 100% as you can. and that will tell you if you're meeting your RDA. And then if you're worried about a toxicity, it's called the UL, or the upper limit. And that is per the research, where we start to see, or where there's been evidence of people having signs and symptoms of toxicity, so harmful effects. And you can also search for that, and you can find tables that tell you what the ULs are of all the different minerals and vitamins. And some don't have ULs because there is no known toxicity. Like B12 is one that,
And those are the water soluble ones.
most of them. B6 is water soluble, but there
just
is
pee 'em out.
right. Yeah. So not all of them. B6 is one, or excuse me, B12 is one that does not have a UL. Like you'll see with B12 supplements, you're getting like 12,000% of your vitamin B12. So yeah, so some vitamins don't have an upper limit. But B6 is one. This is kind of a scary story about supplements. There was a supplement for PMSing, and there was a whole bunch of women taking this B6
Sounds like something a man would sell.
Yeah, probably. And they were taking this B6 supplement, and they started having like nervous loss, so paralysis, and stopped being able to walk.
Yikes.
And they correlated it with this PMS supplement that had high levels of B6, and they removed it and they were able to recover. But yeah, like definitely a good story of being careful with what you're taking and doing your research and being careful with supplements.
That is crazy. Again, I'm just gonna put another plug in for, like, if you're eating a balanced diet, you probably don't even necessarily need to worry about taking supplements unless you're one of the people we talked about, like pregnant people or whatever.
Correct.
I don't know. That's all I keep thinking about, is because I think like, oh, I need to like look at all the percentages of all the supplements, but I don't. As long as I eat my fruits and veggies and balanced meals and stuff, I'll be good. Anyway, okay.
Yep.
So what's the difference? You were talking about like regulations and stuff. What's the difference between FDA and supplemental regulation, between medicine and supplements?
That is such a good question. So the FDA regulates medicine, and medicine and drugs, medicinal drugs, I should say, have to go through a lot of testing. They have to go through cellular testing, and then animal testing, and then human testing. And there's a whole bunch of different stages that they have to before they get approved. Whereas supplements, you can put anything you want on the market. So if we wanted to start a company today, we could fill capsules full of Nesquik powder, and we could market it as whatever we wanted.
Wait, we could say that it was something different than Nesquik powder?
We could say this is, I don't know, like an herbal supplement that helped with your digestion. And
really, we could just make whatever claims we want about what we put in our capsules.
Because, yeah, it's not regulated. And
that is intense.
And so that's why it's really important to be careful, because there isn't as strong of a regulation. And I think it's really interesting. I think culturally, there's a drive to be more natural, and that supplements there's like, people feel better about doing supplements, and people are more nervous about doing medicine, because medicine seems more artificial and man-made. And I just think it's maybe a misconception and lack of education. A lot of our medicines come from herbs and come from like natural substances. Some are not, and some are biologic and man-made, but a lot are. And they've gone through tests, and so you know what the side effects are, you know what to look for. Whereas again, the supplements, you don't know what's in it, or if there is a toxicity, or so. Not that, like, I definitely recommend supplements, but I do think it's important to be careful and to do your research.
Indeed. I learn all the time in my nursing classes back in nursing school the contraindications for taking certain drugs with certain supplements because they counteract with each other. And so you just talk to your doctor and just do your research.
That's a good reminder.
Read some peer-reviewed articles about it.
Yes.
But
if you don't know what that means, I would just ask your physician or your pharmacist, and they can help navigate that process.
Yeah, seriously.
Or your dietitian.
Because obviously supplements can be a very good thing. It just, they are also chemicals that your body is absorbing and using the same as a drug. You just have to be cautious that you don't.
Yeah. Yep. And I think the other thing too, I think, is that supplements could be the next best, greatest thing. It's just that they haven't been researched, so we don't know. So yes, they could be really amazing and great, but still good to be careful and to do your research.
Yep. Yep. So what are your recommendations, or just like how to guide for supplements? Speaking about all this, like how do we be careful?
Yeah. So if you're wanting a micronutrient supplement, right? I guess we can differentiate. There's herbal supplements, and then there's micronutrient supplements that have actual vitamins and minerals. So you want to find these micronutrient supplements that are as close as you can to the 100% daily value. So that's on the actual nutrition label. And then there actually is a regulating body. It's not mandatory, it's optional, but the label will have a stamp that says USP. It stands for United States Pharmacopoeia. And it's an organization that does audits and evaluates all these supplement companies. And they make sure that the facility meets basic like health standards and sanitation. So they actually go in and tour the facilities. And they also ensure that the product contains the ingredients listed on the label and in the correct amounts and potency. So they basically make sure it's processed cleanly and well, and that it is what the supplement carrier is saying it is. Because again, supplements can put on whatever they want because it's not regulated. So it's a little green and yellow stamp that says USP on the bottle.
So just be careful who you buy your supplements from. It sounds like either buy them from an accredited institution or make your own, I guess. I don't know.
That's true.
Just
you
be
could
careful.
grow your own herbs.
Yep.
And I do this was back in, that same class, my nutrition 101 class. I tried to find it because I was going to see if I could post it, but I couldn't find it. It was a TV's news spot where a journalist, where they created their own supplement. They took capsules and they filled it with the Nesquik powder. That's where that example came from. Oh, that's an actual example. And then they paid a physician it was a capsule that was supposed to help your hands feel like moisturized and help your skin. And they paid a physician who had never tried it but endorsed it. And they brought in a film crew and she endorsed it. And then they paid like 4 or 5 actresses to create a commercial and to explain how great the supplement was and how amazing it was. And then later interviewed all of them and said, like, have you tried it? Why would you endorse it? And basically showed how easy it was to create a supplement and create some very convincing commercials and testimonials when in fact it was just Nesquik powder.
That's amazing. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was really good. I should keep trying to find it because it was a really good little news clip.
That is a good news clip. That's well done. So sorry, I have one question about a supplement that I know there's a little bit more research behind, and it's vitamin C with colds. Is that accurate? Like, does vitamin C prevent colds or heal your cold or whatever?
Did you grow up taking vitamin C, like the emergency?
Yeah, yep.
You did? I did too.
Like when I was cold, she'd give us the emergency tea. Yeah. That was my favorite thing.
You liked it?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I didn't like it. I thought it was good.
Yeah, so there definitely is this understanding or belief that vitamin C helps with colds and helps you to feel better. And so, first of all, the research is mixed, but the conclusion is that possibly it can help with colds. Some studies did not show any benefit for starting a supplement once the cold had started. So let's say you get sick and then you start a supplement, it won't really do anything. But if you were taking it prior and taking it in large amounts, so like 1,000 milligrams, that it can help prevent the duration of the cold. So your cold would get better faster. And to put that in perspective, so 1,000 milligrams, one orange has 100 milligrams in it. And then what's recommended is 75 milligrams for women and 90 for men. It is water soluble. So again, I don't think there is a known toxicity for vitamin C. Um, so it might be, I mean, it could be beneficial during cold season to take supplements in these higher amounts to help speed up the process for your vitamin C.
Or eat 10 oranges a
Or
day
eat 10
to
oranges
get
a day.
1,000 milligrams.
That sounds amazing.
That's a lot of oranges. My goodness. All right.
So, in summary, I would say if you're looking for, or if you're worried about your micronutrients, I would look at what potentially if you're a vegan or vegetarian, or if you have some nutrition intolerance, if you've like cut out lactose products, is you should probably recommend or look into a supplement. Or if you have any condition that you're worried about malabsorption, you should look into a supplement. And then for all the rest of us, you'd always get it tested if you feel like you need to. But for most of us, as long as you're eating a varied diet, and if you do choose to take a or a multivitamin, it really won't hurt anything. It might make your pee more expensive. But if you do choose to do a micronutrient, recommendation is to just check those labels, make sure it has the USP stamped on it, and that the percentages are as close to 100% of the daily value.
Very nice. Maybe I need to start taking a multivitamin. I haven't taken a multivitamin in ages, but that is all, folks.
If you are listening, we imagine that you are probably on your own health journey. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of this journey. We want to invite you to consider these 3 questions as a weekly personal check-in.
The first question is that maintaining a positive mindset is crucial for success. So, what are your victories and your wins from the past week?
Second question, what are your intentions or focus or goals for this next week? Reminder that the simpler and more realistic, the better.
And the last question is, what are you going to do to accomplish this goal? Be specific, and we invite you to write this down somewhere. What specific things will you do to reach this goal of yours?
Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you are listening to, we would invite you to subscribe. We'd also invite you to leave a review. If you do, you will be entered into our monthly drawing to win a box of meal deliveries. Take a screenshot of your review and send it to Complete Nutrition, complete with a K, completenutrition@gmail.com. You can also check us out online at www.complete-nutrition.com or on Instagram at complete_nutrition.